Hey, you guys. So when the sun sets, the light you had, you don't have anymore. And relating this to Matthew 24, every change of the age that happens every 2 to 3,000 years in mankind globally, Jesus said the stars would fall to the earth, the sun would be blotted out. Peter said there would be an eclipse. You don't see the sun in that type of eclipse. Isaiah said the sun will no longer be your light by day. What is it? Amos said the day of the Lord is darkness and not light. Because there has to be darkness for a new day. And the evening and the morning were the first day, and the evening and the morning were the second day, and the evening and the morning were the third day. There has to be darkness because the light you had to work with in your yesteryear has to go away. The prince of that world has to be able to come and find no resemblance in you. That light goes away. Those stars, those guiding stars fall to the earth. Daniel 12, those who turn many to righteousness will shine as the stars forever. But those stars fall, that new guiding lights with a greater consciousness, a greater awareness of how reality works must come. And the light from your yesteryear is only a memory. When you eat of the fruit that was forbidden to the you of yesterday, your group, your theology, when you eat of that fruit in that very day, you die to the light you had in the previous day of your life. This is true corporately with mankind, but also personally, we go through many days of the Son of Man. Mankind in you, through co-thinking with God, critical thinking skills, overturning the tables of the previous to bring forth the new, takes place, but there's often a dark night of the soul where we say things like, I used to have it down. I used to have my theology, my relationship with God, the things Spirit was telling me were the things that Spirit was telling me was this, this, and this. And now Spirit is telling me things that are 100% contradictory to that. So people often say, I used to know exactly who I was, what my assignment was, and now I have no idea. So there's the night season. And when the next morning comes, weeping endures for a night, joy comes in the morning. This is reconstruction from the previous deconstruction. See, not this great temple, not one stone shall be left unturned. That's what Jesus said to the 12. So in the new day, and I don't mean just throughout a day, each hour of a day, you refine the light you're working with. You refine it to make it more loving and inclusive. You refine it with the deep mysteries, reveal, illumination. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a new day that obliterates the previous day. In Hebrews, it says you fold it up as a scroll and throw it away. You destroy the old to bring forth the new. This is a very controversial, very hot topic. The deconstruction groups are many. The religious trauma syndrome is a very real diagnosis. The spirit of the age that we've been in has not worked. Many of the great prophets in the prophetic church are now being exposed as what many would call hypocrites, but I don't think they're hypocrites. I think they are the ones who fully gave their entire existence to the spirit of the age, which is spirit over soul, dominating the human self. It was produced through colonialism, the quantum entanglement of your religion, whether Judaism, Islam, or Christianity, your religion with quantum entanglement with your ethnic supremacy. Your spirit dehumanizes other ethnicities, other orientations, but also your very human self. As Paul said in Galatians 2:20, crucify the human self and let only the spirit live. And so that those who gave themselves completely to that are now found to be dysfunctional. So happy when I just watched Fiorella Giordano talk about leaving the prophetic church because of seeing the dysfunction in it and being an architect for a new age rather than just healing the symptoms of the previous, of the current age. So through spirit-human harmonization, seen as the spirit, the ethereal in you, and the tangible, physical, daily grind in you, seen as equals, each has their proper function. And this creates, again, Fiorella talks about the mountain of transfiguration as what will characterize the coming age. And I've been talking about that for years, that it's not heaven or earth in you, it's not the celestial or the terrestrial in you, it's the mountain in between, heaven and earth, made of both, best of both, best things from your spirit, best things from your earthen nature, the sensual world, spirituality and sensuality combined to create that mountain. And that's where transfiguration occurs, where we won't have to deal with the symptoms of the previous time, because those things that cause those symptoms will not exist anymore. Because once you coagulate perfectly with your human self, your eyes are opened and you see the plight of marginalized people. You see people that are similar and people that are different from you, other religions, other orientations, other ethnicities, other ways, other cultural ways, and you celebrate them because you celebrate others that are different from you to the intensity that your spirit can now celebrate your humanity in your uniqueness. If you can celebrate your uniqueness, see right now in the current time, it's the hour of the woman who stood before Solomon and said, I'd rather the baby die, cut it in half, than to be with its actual mother. The actual mother was like, I just want it to live, if it's life or death, give it life with the other woman. And so what America, upon seeing and sensing and realizing that, black people are going to have equal celebration as white people, and gay people will have equal celebration as straight people, etc., 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 etc. Palestinians, Ukrainians, etc., all the marginalized people will have equality with the oppressor culture, which people never called themselves oppressor culture. They called it, ascended masters. So when that book of remembrance is written, it says in the Old Testament, a book of remembrance was written through the activity of those who spoke often to one another of the things of the Lord. And so as we speak often to one another about the things of equality, finding the spirit where it always has been, not in its larval form in the high heavens, but in its reality, bust out of the cocoon form in humanity, that's equality in its actualized form, not having to find the spirit somewhere else or in someone's literature, Buddhist, Vedic, Scientology, Christian, Judaic literature, someone else's ideas about God, having to go shoot up into a higher vibration to find spirit. Now you're finding spirit in your humanity where it always was. But when you find spirit, not through somebody else's idea, or how someone else defines the laws of the universe for everybody else, as you find spirit within your humanity, you find the spiritual within the sensual in repose, just you being you. My God, that's a dark night of the soul at first, because you realize how you've been lied to about everything, literally everything. And so the rabbis wrote the visions they saw, but they wrote them according to their nature, which is the reverse of God. Ezra deported 120 women. This is Ezra chapter 10, deports 120 women and 300 or so kids because they were not of his ethnicity. Read it, Ezra 10. And he had the final edit on what the rabbinical groups wrote as what we now call the Old Testament or the Jewish scriptures. So it was written based on their nature, which was God in reverse. Misogyny is God in reverse, not God. So we see visions like the Garden of Eden account. Moses didn't write anything. That was the rabbinical schools. So they wrote the visions as Eve falling, when Eve was actually bringing an upgrade. Because when you eat the fruit of an upgrade, you die in that very day to what you had before, and the God that apprehended you in your less mature state is a jealous God and will throw shade at what you're doing and try to curse what you're doing. So the Garden of Eden and Jesus, with the three temptations in the wilderness with Yahweh, who he now called Satan just for the same reason he called Peter Satan. You know, when Peter said, no, you can't go to Jerusalem. How are you going to be king? They'll crucify you. He said, get behind me, Satan, you know. So he dislodges from the cultural religion, God in reverse, and he hooks into God going forward rather than God going backwards to Moses. Now he hooks into the Spirit of God going forwards from law to grace, and then we inherit grace 2,000 years later, and now we're going to go backwards again? Why not eat the forbidden fruit of equality, the Black Lives Matter movement, MLK spirit, that can celebrate diversity, and that's how the nations will heal, when we find spirit in earth rather than traveling upwards to a larval, less developed form of God. God is always evolving as it comes into the earth and sensual world of humanity. That's where God evolves into its fruit form. And it's forbidden to those who say, you are only spirit, or you are primarily spirit, or you should just walk in the spirit. It's forbidden fruit, but when you eat that forbidden fruit and you go through the dark night of the soul, uprooting those old ideas, and you say, we are purely human, and spirit is a component of our human being. This uproots the old fruit, and it creates the healing of the nations as it outworks from each individual who does it into society, and the nations 500 years from now will start celebrating each other, and instead of holy wars in the name of their God. So what we did, though, was we separated out the ethereal spirit in us. Spirit in Hebrews 4, that we use the sword of the Spirit to separate spirit and soul and make spirit to be some God that we lay claim to, that is superior to the gods that other people lay claim to when they did the same exact process, or went through the same process. A rugged, powerful sanctification process where you belong fully to the God that you believe in. Everybody did it. Across the pond they did it. Ends in holy wars, ends in the flesh that you put underfoot eventually growing in a darker form to overtake, as was it Lou Engle, porn addict, Sean Boltz, sexual misconduct and faking his word of knowledge gift, Mike Bickle with a 14-year-old girl and 20 plus other women while married, back to Jimmy Swaggart with prostitutes. These people aren't hypocrites. They just did it fully in ways that the followers didn't. The followers were compromising. That's why they never had the flesh in a darker form to overtake them. These people just gave their 100% to it. My last year, after over 20 years of celibacy, no porn, no sex, the attempt most of those years for a zero masturbation lifestyle. The last year it overtook, and it told me so. The human self, the sacred, beautiful sexuality in me that I had put underfoot for over 2 decades, voiced itself from my deep gut and said, I'm coming back. I'm coming back. And I didn't know what to do with that. It didn't feel like a demon. It didn't feel like an attack. It didn't feel like a deception. It just felt sovereign. And it was sovereign. And it did overtake. And I had a sexual fall with a woman I met. And I did look at porn and went through, confessed it to my church, went through a restoration process. And then boom, that's when God pops me out of the spirit of the age and brings me into the spirit of the coming age, which is spirituality and the spiritual world and the sensual world coagulated as husband and wife within me, so that it's no longer my spirit and God's spirit, it's my spirit and my soul, my spirit awareness and self-awareness, which is what it was in the very beginning before we separated the spirit and soul and made our spirit to be something other than what it was. We made it to be a starseed up there or an Arcturian, or an ascended master, or Jesus coming to us in the ethereal, or angels, or whatever, and projecting what was in us onto the spirit world as though God was someone other than us. But when the marriage supper of the Lamb is within you, your spirit, your soul, you don't need to project onto some superior God that you need to be a city set on a hill and everybody else has to conform to your light. Now you celebrate other people's lights, even though you will not allow people to bring you back. You won't allow people to bring you back to where you came from, and they will bully you and bully you and bully you and dehumanize you. And then when you don't allow them, what did Paul say in Galatians? We did not, what did he say? Whom we gave voice to, not for 1 hour. You know, he was talking about other apostles who wanted to bring the Christians who were going by faith back into the law. He said, we gave them voice, not for 1 hour. And so when you don't give them voice in your life to bring you backwards to where you came from so that you can fit in again, then they see you as the bully. You're trying to play king on the hill or whatever, you know. Very serious, very hot topic. You get my point. You get my drift. Thanks, guys. I think there's some good manna. I feel it going in, in this message. Thanks, guys.